Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I hope all of you are fine and doing good with your families. Uh, this is the first lecture that I'm recording after or during the corona lockdown. We haven't met after probably 12 to 13 March, and it was before the mids. So it's almost 3 months, and I understand that you haven't been very close to studying anything. I do understand that in this tough situation that we are in, that we are hearing about the patients of corona or those who are living with it after Eid or around that time. We are hearing of our relatives getting corona positive. So obviously I understand that this is a tough time for all of you, and I do hope and pray that you and your families are safe. And keeping that in mind, I wanted this course and this methodology of online education to be very simple. What we are going to do is that I am going to record the lectures before the class time, and I'll upload it on YouTube and send you the link via I'll upload copy and paste the link in Google Classroom. You all will be added in the Google Classroom, and by the time you watch this video you will be added in the classroom. Google Classroom is a platform where we will discuss about the PDF file, the presentations. You can have access to all the files related to this course. There you will have the links of the videos as well. So all of the data package, all of the course will be there. The assignments will be there, which you will submit and upload on the classroom, the Google Classroom, and I will return it on the same platform. For the question answers, you can use the conversation part of the classroom, and we'll be having Zoom meetings on the scheduled time of the timetable that is mentioned. Those meetings will be obviously live, where you can put your questions and I'll be able to answer them. But I do hope that after going through the recorded lectures, you will have very little questions, and this methodology of online education should work efficiently. And if it doesn't, we'll not be hesitant to change it. We do want the efficiency of this system to work, and obviously the management and all the techniques related to it, they demand from us to keep improving. And if we see that the things are not working very efficiently, we'll try to improvise and we'll try to make changes. As for now, in this course, that is Engineering Economy and Construction Management, we before mids we did the engineering economy part, and we started the construction management. A brief introduction was given to you. There was a set of slides that we started to study. It's the same set of slides with some graphical changes. As we are going to study it after about 3 months, so I will quickly go through the slides that we have already studied, just to remind you of what was the basic definitions that we studied. And after that we'll continue from where we left. So this was a set of slides: construction management and scheduling. These are the related books that you were told about. We discussed about the project, what is a project, and we did discuss that it is a temporary endeavor and they're taken to create a unique product, service, or result. And we emphasized on the two words that the project should be, or it must be, something that is temporary. It cannot be permanent. It cannot just go on and on. It has to end, and it must have a starting and an ending point. And we discussed about the difference between a project and an operation. An operation is something that is repetitive. It keeps on repeating. A project is something that starts and it ends, and it gives a unique product, service, or result. Uh, and operation does not give a unique product, service, or result. It gives the same product that is that it will produce after every cycle. These the definition of the project should be very clear to you, and if it doesn't, you can have questions in the videos in the live video session. We discussed about the sub projects as well. What is a project, and under its umbrella, what are the sub projects? And we discussed that the sub projects can be divided on based on different criteria, based on specialty of the thing that you're going to put in the subcategory. It can be based on the responsibility that you're going to assign to anybody. For example, you can make sub projects based on civil works and electrical works and mechanical works, where you can give the responsibility to civil engineers or the team of civil engineers or electrical or mechanical engineers. It can be based on phase, the time of the project. Some part of the project could be termed as urgent. It can be made a sub project which can be called an urgent piece of work under the project. Some projects can be put into the second phase, that and so on. You can make and as many phases as possible based on the duration of the urgency of the project, that the part of the project that is going to be done. And again, it can be done on any type of criteria, area, or anything. So the sub projects were discussed, and probably the example of UET, the construction of UET Narwhal campus was given. After that, we discussed about the task or activity. What is a task or activity? And we said that a sub project, or if you don't have any sub project, any project can be divided into very small parts called task or activity. And what is a task or activity? That needs to be accomplished within a defined period of time, or by a deadline to work towards work-related goals. A task can be broken down into assignments, which should also have a defined start and end date or a deadline for completion. Example is given. A project could be the construction of a hospital. You can divide it into sub-projects based on different criteria. And what are activities? The examples of activities are leveling, excavation, termite proofing, concreting. All these examples and more were given. So what is a project? What is a sub-project? What is a task? That should be clear in your minds. Milestone, what was termed as something that has zero duration. It can be called a zero duration activity. It is used basically to mark something. For example, you're running a 1,000 meters or a kilometer race, and you can have the milestones marked at after every 100 meters. So there could be 10 milestones of 100, 200, and so on meters. In the same way, a project can be distributed in various activities, and after the completion of a set of activities, you can mark it as a milestone. For example, again, if you consider the example of construction of UET Narwhal, you could say that completion of the signature building was a milestone, after which some office staff could be shifted to that building. And when you are studying about the project scheduling and its monitoring. You can put different milestones just to know that at which phase of the project you have reached and what are the things that are going to uh, be observed in the future. A deliverable is a term used in project management to describe a tangible or intangible object produced as a result of the project that is intended to be delivered to a customer, and the customer can be either internal or external. Any customer that is part of the same organization is an internal customer. When you submit something from one department of the organization to the other department, you are submitting it to the internal customer. And when you submit something uh, to the person or the organization other than your own organization, that is an external customer. So what is a deliverable? It is basically anything that can be touched, that is tangible, or that cannot be touched but it has some value. For example, a service that is provided to some customer is called a deliverable. A deliverable could be a report, a document, a work package, a server upgrade, or any other building block of an overall project. Now, you can see both the examples of tangible and intangible objects in the examples given. A report, a document, a work package, you can touch it. A server upgrade, you cannot touch it. It's an intangible object. So these sort of submissions to the customer are called deliverables. In a project, there can be one deliverable, or there can be more than one deliverables. For larger projects, there can be thousands of deliverables. So each deliverable uh, makes the way for the subsequent deliverable that is going to come in the future. Now we take a look at what is management. Management is basically a function. Its purpose is to use all the available resources in the best possible way, in the most efficient and effective way, and the goal or the final product of the management is to accomplish goals using the coordination of the people. So basically, whatever the resources there are, management helps the people to use them in the best possible way to accomplish the goal. For example, in construction management, the goal or objective could be the construction of some building, construction of some water reservoir. Whatever the resources are available, management coordinates with the people to accomplish the goal using the resources in the best possible way. So to understand management, there are other things to be understood as well. For example, the resources, the people involved to complete the management process. And the main thing is that management helps to achieve some goal or objective. Now, what are the processes that management includes? First of all, there has to be planning. If you plan well, then you organize to complete the objective. After organizing, you do the staffing, you gather people around, and then you do the leading or directing part. The manager or the project manager, he leads or directs after planning, organizing, and staffing. And while the manager is leading or directing the staff, he controls the overall management process. The controlling involves change of plans. It involves the substantiation of plans, so that whatever the plan is, if it's working well, you carry on doing it. But if it shows some shortcomings, it shows some errors, you uh, change the strategies and try to remove the errors. And the purpose is to accomplish the goal, to complete the project, to do whatever was perceived or conceived as at the starting point. Now the first part of management was planning, and we'll be mainly talking about planning in the next few slides. Planning aims at formulation of a time-based plan of action for coordinating various activities and resources to achieve specified objectives. Now, when we talk about the time-based plan of action, it means that you have to have the knowledge of all the activities and what is the time taken by the activities. So uh, when we in the later slides, when we'll talk about scheduling and planning differently, we'll see that scheduling is a part of planning, and scheduling involves the time taken by each activity and the relationship between the activities. And remember that activities is nothing but a breakdown of the overall project. If you want to go from one place to another, you can break it down and you can link all the activities and see which activity will take how much time. So when you look at the right side of the slide, that is a cycle. First, you start with setting the goals. When you set a goal, take an example of going from Lahore to Islamabad. The goal is to move from Lahore to Islamabad and reach Islamabad. So when you set a goal, you gather data about it. Now, if you want to go from Lahore to Islamabad, you will try to gather data about what are the different ways of going from Lahore to Islamabad. One way is the public transport. Another way is going on your own conveyance. You can take a lift with your friend. So there are many ways of going from Lahore to Islamabad, and the step of gathering data will enable you to understand the different pros and cons of each way. Then when you gather the data, you analyze it and look for the best possible way that will help you go from Lahore to Islamabad. After analyzing the data and uh, understanding the results, you will create a plan. Your plan will involve different activities. It will, for example, if you decide to go on your own car, it will probably involve the tuning of the car or preparation of the car for fuel. You probably, the first task you would do is to fill up the tank, and then you will prepare yourself with the all the necessary luggage that you're going to take with yourself, and you will decide a time when you want to move. You will decide probably uh, the spots where you will stop for breaks, and you will probably know for a specific time or the specific frame of time when you will reach to Islamabad. When you create a plan, you implement the plan, and while implementing the plan, either you implement the plan completely, or there are chances that you change some parts of the plan based on the actual situation that you uh, encounter when you execute the plan. And if you see that there are some things that you need to change, monitoring the plan will help you understand that. If you monitor your plan while implementation, you will see that some things probably will need some changing. So you either you will change it or you will keep with the plan that will be decided by you based on the monitoring. And when you complete this cycle for another uh, uh, project or for another planning, you again will set your goals. And for example, now you decide to go from Islamabad to Abbottabad. Probably the previous cycle will help you, and you will have the data of your car, how your car is working, how your driving skills are helping you out, and whatever the situation is. The previous experience of coming from Lahore to Islamabad will help you in deciding or planning your trip from Islamabad to Abbottabad. So this cycle of planning will go on and will improve by each and every project that you do. Anyways, planning is a general term that sets a clear roadmap that should be followed to reach a destination. And the more experienced you are, the more vigilant you are about, and the more insight you have of the future, the better planning is expected of you. Planning involves the breakdown of the project into definable, measurable, and identifiable tasks and activities, and then establish the logical interdependencies among them. As I mentioned earlier, that while completing a project, you break down the project into various tasks and activities. For example, if you are going to construct a house, let's say a one room house, uh, how you can break down the project. First of all, while constructing, you have to do the excavation to lay out the foundations. So the excavation is the first activity that you're going to do. After excavation, you can lay out the foundation. If you do not do the excavation, you cannot lay out the excavation. And once you construct the excavations, only then you can construct the superstructure up over it. So without the foundations, you cannot construct the superstructure. So the the excavation, construction of the substructure or foundations, and the construction of superstructure are probably your three activities that you're going to do. And if you want to even further break it down, you can break down the construction of foundations. For example, there are different steps of masonry. You can uh, include the lean concrete that you're going to pour on the excavated soil. So all these activities, while you're breaking it down, you must keep in mind that all these activities should be definable. They should have some definition. For example, excavation, it should have some definition that what you are going to excavate, what are the specifications of the excavation, how much you're going to excavate will come in and help you in the measurable part of it. That an activity has to be measurable. You should be able to measure it. Once you're able to measure an activity, you can monitor it more effectively. For example, if you define that the excavation has to be done on 100-meter length and 2 meter is the width of the excavated area, only then you can measure it while doing the excavation. And at different phases, you can report it as 50% done or 100% done. So while planning, you have to be vigilant about it, that the activities should be definable and measurable, and then they should be identifiable. They should be different from each other. If an activity is called excavation, it should be different than pouring the concrete. It should be different than masonry work. And if these three conditions are met, only then we can prepare or make a proper breakdown of the project. So summarizing it, basically what planning answers is that what is to be done. For example, construction of a house. How to do it? The methodology will help you out in how to do it. Who does it? Planning will enable us to let us know that who will construct the house. Now there are some codes that go with the planning, that if you have a good plan, you can do wonders. The first quote is, a goal without a plan is just a wish. You can wish for anything, but if you do not have plan, you cannot make it a goal. So when you make something your goal, you have to have a plan with it. Then there is plans are nothing, planning is everything, which means that you can dream of anything, you can make plans, but you have to have the execution phase of the plan as well. The planning involves the implementing of the plan and lets you know what is to be done and how it should be done and who will do it. Now, the next is good luck is the result of good planning, that you cannot expect good luck without having a good planning on your part. If you do your part of planning better, good luck will follow you. Now we'll talk about planning and scheduling. Planning and scheduling are two terms that are often thought of as synonymous. However, they are not. Scheduling is basically a part of planning effort. Planning involves what is to be done, how it should be done, but what scheduling does is it it uh, it elaborates when something would be done. You make a plan, you break down the project into different activities, and you link the activities and define a specific time for each activity. That is basically scheduling, uh, defining or assigning specific time to each activity. Planning is basically all of it. Planning lets you think about what is to be done. Scheduling doesn't let you think about that. Scheduling tells you that how much time will be taken for any activity and how the activities are linked with each other. Now, there are some examples we commonly hear about financial planning, such as retirement planning and college education planning, although this type of planning may include other aspects, such as what to do after retirement or which college to choose for your child. The main focus is on finance. Governments as well as large corporations have planning units or teams in almost every department. So basically, it is telling you about financial planning. When you talk about financial planning, so basically, the main focus is on finances. Similarly, at the individual level, a young person may have plans for marriage, a career, and so forth. However, in the context of this subject, the term planning is restricted to meaning project planning. In this subject, we'll talk about construction or project plannings. Now, what is scheduling? Scheduling is the determination of the timing and sequence of operations in the project and their assembly to give the overall completion time. And I have mentioned previously as well, scheduling focuses on one part of the planning effort. There are other parts: what is to be done, how is to be done, and when it will be done. Scheduling focuses on when it should be done. That's mentioned here as well. Project planning answers the questions: what is going to be done, how, where, by whom, and when. While scheduling deals with when on a detailed level, that it elaborates, it uh, opens up the when part of the overall project planning. Planning, scheduling, and project control are extremely important components of project management. However, project management includes other components such as cost estimating and management, procurement, project contract administration, quality management, and safety management. These components are all interrelated in different ways. The group of people representing all these disciplines is called the project management team. It is usually headed by the project manager. So after reading out this paragraph, you will be able to understand that when we talk about project management, it involves various things. First of all, planning, scheduling, and project control. And then there are things related with it: cost estimating and procurement. Now, cost estimating is a part of planning. While you're doing the planning, uh, you estimate the cost of different activities and different components of the project. And procurement, it means to procure anything, to look uh, uh, for means to obtain things. It can be about materials, it can be about resources, it can be about different services to complete the project. In the next few topics, we'll discuss about procurement management as well. Then there are other components: project or contract administration. When you're doing a construction project or a project, you have to have different contracts between the parties, and administering them is called contract administration. That how different contracts are helping each activity in the project. Quality management and safety management. When you are implementing a project, the project is in execution phase, you take care of the quality and safety, and while you're doing the planning, you make way for how to improve the quality of the project as it moves on. So while you're doing the planning, all these components are part of your thinking process. And when you execute your project, all these components manifest in different ways. At the time of planning, planning is the most important thing. It involves scheduling, it involves cost estimating, it involves contract administration, quality management, safety management, all of these things. But when you are executing the things, the planning is kind of left behind, and you only have the liberty to change some parts of the plans, but not all. So when you are planning, you have to have a very deep insight of everything which is going to happen in the future, so that if you make a very good plan, you will have very little changes to do while you execute the project or while completing the project, and you will be able to make the project of more quality if you plan it well. If you do not plan it well, then it will become very difficult at the execution stage to make changes and uh, make the project a successful one. As explained earlier, it is again mentioned that project planning is done to increase the likelihood that the project will be implemented efficiently, effectively, and successfully. As project planning is a part of management, so and the management has same purpose, that you use the available resources in the best possible way, in the most efficient way, to achieve the goal that you have set. Project planning obviously has, as part of it, does the same. The project planning covers the first three stages of the project management cycle. This cycle is illustrated in the next page, so we'll go directly to that. Um, there can be different cycles that can explain project management. It's a very simple cycle of project management. The first step in it is to conceptualize. Conceptualize means that you set your goal in a way that you make a wish, make a dream, you understand the problem, and to solve that problem or to achieve your wish, you do the planning. You make a plan and make preparations for it. The first three parts involve planning. You, while conceptualizing, you have some sort of planning process going on. While making a plan, you have some sort of plan. And then when you prepare it keeping in view what is going to happen in the future. So you're doing the planning. And while implementing and monitoring, you execute your plan and evaluate it during the implementation, and obviously at the end of the implementation of the plan as well. And when you evaluate for the next cycle of conceptualization and doing a new project, you'll have better analytics to make your plan work again in the next project. It is explained, the cycle is explained here in the theory. Conceptualize project scope and objectives. Explore the problem, identify priority needs, consider project solutions, and evaluate organizational capacity. It means that you can start a project if you have some problem. You need shelter, you construct a house. You want to store water for irrigation purposes or for electricity, you construct a dam or a reservoir. So if there is a problem, there is an opportunity, and you conceptualize some project to solve that problem. So conceptualization involves all these steps, all these categories. Explore the problem, identify priority needs, consider project solutions, and evaluate organizational capacity. What can be done in the organization that you're working? What is the capacity of it? And look for the probable solutions that any problem that you are facing can have. Then after conceptualization, you plan the project, establish the project scope. What are the boundaries of the project that you're going to work within? Clarify goals and objectives. What are the specific goals and objectives that you are going to achieve? It means that you bring it in the on the paper in black and white, so that you while implementing the project, you have clear knowledge of what is going to be achieved at the end of the project. So choose the most appropriate course of action that is a part of the plan of the project. There are, as we discussed about going from Lahore to Islamabad, the most appropriate course of action uh, can be uh, to go on your own vehicle, or you can take a lift, or you can go on a public transport. Similarly, in a construction project, there can be many courses of action. So based on the circumstances, based on the organizational capacities, or based on the strategies of the organization, you have to choose the most appropriate course of action. Similarly, moving on, identify the inputs and resources required in terms of people, materials, time, and money. Develop a budget and draft a project plan. All these things are basically part of the plan to plan a project. Then prepare project proposal. When you plan a project, you prepare it to be presented to someone who is a stakeholder, or who can uh, lend you money to execute the plan, who can be a sponsor, who can be a client. So all these entities, they can vary from project to project. Some projects may need sponsors. Some projects are basically client based, that a client comes to you and asks you to undertake uh, a project. So you conceptualize the project, you plan the project, and prepare a proposal and present it to the client. And sometimes you conceptualize the project by yourself and look for the sponsors. So you conceptualize the project, you plan the project, and present the proposals to probable sponsors, so that they can help you out financially and accept the proposal to initiate the project. Then there is implementing the project. Implement the project by following a work plan and completing predetermined tasks and activities. And while you're doing it, you monitor the progress and adjust as necessary. After that, evaluate the project. Review what has happened, consider the value of what has been achieved, and learn from that experience in order to improve future project planning. That is, for the next project that you're going to undertake, you use the knowledge that you get from doing this project. And if you have implemented it on the plan and monitored it, and you have documented the results of the monitoring and evaluation, only then you can use the results in the next projects. There are various project planning steps. Some of these have already been discussed, but while documenting it, we will have these 7 steps. First of all, define the scope of work, method, statement, and sequence of work. If you want to do any project, first of all, you must know that what is the scope of the work, what is the area, what is the domain that you're going to work in. For example, if you're going to construct a hospital, first of all, you have to define the scope of the work. How many patients or how many beds that hospital is going to serve? How many floors are there? What's the area on which the project of the hospital is going to be constructed? How it is going to be constructed will be mentioned in the method statement, that which method is going to be used. For example, if you consider the structure work, are you going to build a frame structure, or a masonry structure, or a steel structure? What is the method of doing it? Based on the area, what kind of machinery you're going to use? what kind of material you're going to use. So this is all mentioned in the method statement. And then the sequence of work. Obviously, if you have the scope, you have the method, then you can make the sequence, and vice versa as well. If you have the sequence, you can change the method as well. So while defining, you have the liberty to change things more. While you are implementing the project, you have very less chances of changing the scope or methodology or the sequence. After the definition of scope of work and related things, you generate the work breakdown structure to produce a complete list of activities. In the next slides, we will see what is a work breakdown structure. It is basically breaking down the whole project into different sets of activities. We'll see how a WBS is constructed, and similarly, the third step is develop the organizational breakdown structure, OBS, and link it with WBS to identify responsibilities. Organizational breakdown structure is basically breaking down your organizational staff into different categories and into different levels. For example, there can be a CEO, then there can be functional heads, and under them can be different managers. So what is OBS? We'll discuss it in the coming slides. After developing the WBS and OBS, you determine the relationship between the activities. What are the relationship between the activities? How one activity will affect the other. Estimate activities time duration, cost expenditure, and resource requirement. Each activity will have some definite time duration, cost, and resource that needs to be estimated. Develop the project network. A network of the project will be formed so that while implementing the project, you can monitor the project more effectively, and if you see any discrepancy, you can remove it as soon as possible. And obviously the next step is monitor or evaluate the project. If you have a good WBS formed, a good OBS formed, and the relationship and the time duration, cost expenditure is done very well, and the project network is very realistic, only then you can monitor or evaluate the project very well. Now, what is WBS or work breakdown structure? The WBS is described as a hierarchical structure which is designed to logically subdivide all the work elements of the project into a graphical representation. The full scope of work for the project is placed at the top of the diagram, and then subdivided smaller elements of work at each lower level of the breakdown. If you see in this example, house is to be constructed. So the whole project name is mentioned on the top, and construction of house is basically divided into 3 parts at the level 2. First part is civil, second is plumbing, and the third is electrical. And you can subdivide the all the elements in the level 2 in different further elements in level 3. That is, civil is divided into foundations and walls and roof. Plumbing is divided into piping and hot and cold water, and similar electrical is divided into wiring and fittings. It's just an example. When you're doing the actual project, obviously that will be more elaborative and more detailed, but in this example you can understand that level 1 represents the full scope of work for the house. In level 2, the project is subdivided into its 3 main trades, and in level 3 each trade is subdivided to specific work packages. So basically what you have done is you had broken down the project into different smaller elements at different levels. At level 2 there are 3 elements, and further at level 3 there are more elements. So going back, at the lowest level of the WBS, the elements of work is called a work package. A list of projects activities is developed from the work packages. So basically a work package is something that brings together all the activities and forms the bigger project. There's another example, WBS example 2 gas development project. It is divided into two elements in level 2, recovery unit 300 and process unit 400, and similarly there are other elements at different levels, and you can see it is mentioned at the bottom of the table that there each level represents different elements. Then we have organizational breakdown structure, OBS. Similar to WBS, we can break down the staff or the manpower in the organization into different levels. An organizational breakdown structure defines the different responsibility levels and their appropriate reporting needs. That each level will have different responsibilities among the staff, and obviously when you have different responsibility you will respond differently. For example, you can take the example of our class. All the students have different responsibilities and the teacher has a different one. A teacher will take the assignments or will take the input from the students and will judge them. Similarly, different staff members of the organization are responsible to different bosses or different heads. The figure on the right describes responsibilities of different individuals in the form of an organizational breakdown structure, and you can see that on the top is the project manager. It means if you relate it with the WBS example here, that is a house, if you relate it with the OBS, the project manager is basically responsible for whole of the project, whole of the construction of the house. Then there are different people under him: subcontractor A, general contractor, subcontractor B, and general contractor is further divided into mechanical superintendent, civil superintendent, and electrical. And then the civil is subdivided again in the rebar foreman, formwork foreman, and concrete foreman. So the organization is basically divided into different staff members having different responsibilities and answerable to different people. In this figure you can see how WBS can be linked with the OBS on the in the form of a matrix. You can see that WBS has vertical alignment and the OBS has horizontal alignment, and a control account is mentioned here where you can see that formwork foreman is responsible for the formwork. That is, if you see the formwork here and the formwork foreman here, the formwork foreman is responsible for formwork, and similarly other persons of the organization can be held responsible for different parts of the WBS. Then we see here that the WBS can be coded in different ways, but in the text it is mentioned that master format is basically the most followed format for coding the work breakdown structure. Now why is it important to code different activities or apply the WBS coding? Basically, when we talked about the activities of the task, we said that the activities should be identifiable. The codes help them to be identified. Each activity will have different code, and while monitoring and evaluation, you can check for the code instead of writing the complete name of the activity or the complete description of the activity. Similarly, while using the coding, you can see that which activity is placed where. For example, if you see on the right side, the first code is zeros and procurement and contracting requirements is the name. Now anything that comes under the procurement and contracting requirements, it can be given a similar code. So you can categorize the activities better by using the WBS work breakdown structure coding. And usually the coding is lengthy numbers with having uh, blank numbers in between. It is because to incorporate any new activity within the two activities so that you have blank numbers to fill it in. Then we have a definition of bar chart. We have seen in the previous examples that a bar chart is basically used to specify or to exhibit the activities and their durations. It is basically a graphic representation of project activities shown in a time scaled bar line with no links shown between activities. The bar chart was originally developed by Henry L. Gantt and in 1917 and is alternatively called a Gantt chart. It became popular and now we use it for scheduling and to monitor the plan that we have prepared for a project. It is very commonly used. Before a bar chart can be constructed for a project, the project must be broken into smaller, usually homogeneous components, each of which is called an activity or task. Obviously, when you have the task, you link them together and you specify the durations. Only then you can create a bar chart like this. Here you can see the name of the task and the description, their starting and ending date, and the number of days, that is the duration of the activity. And when you see the graph or the bar chart, you see that each activity is represented by some bar. Now you can see that while looking at the bar chart, you get a very quick idea about which activity has more duration, which activity has the less duration, and what is the overall duration of the project. So bar chart will help you in um, making it easy to understand the project, especially in terms of the duration.